Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the very first episode of RZ's Unit Review. This is where I'll be talking about third-party units and giving my honest opinions on them. Now, please bear in mind that while I'm in the process of testing these units, I don't really have anybody I can play TA with, so most of these units are going to be tested under skirmish conditions. And this is no substitute for playing against an actual well player. But I can actually give, at least from just working with the units, give a reasonable explanation of how they might actually be used. Anyways, so the first unit on our list is the Amphibious AK. Now, what is the Amphibious AK? Well, it's an AK that's amphibious. And that's basically it. I could definitely see the appeal of this unit as an early raider, and could definitely be used to tilt even more experienced players, if just simply to throw them off. Hey, you have Irrad River Confluence, you're not, unless you're using aircraft, or ships, you're not going to have problems, but then all of a sudden you get these fuckers coming up on the shore. Now, functionally, again, they are the same as the AK. They have the same weapon, they have the same speed, same turn rate, so they are reasonably quick and nimble. Now, I did notice over the course of testing, you do notice that the backpack module does not turn with the unit, so I think that's a case of whoever designed this failing to link those properly. I don't know how unit creation and total annihilation actually works. So, anyways, now, again, these units are functionally the same. As you can see, Amphibious AK, you have 796 energy, 66 metal, and a build time of 18 seconds, speed 20.6, acceleration 1.110, and a turn rate of 181 degrees. Whereas the standard AK, build time of 696, metal of 56, or not build time, energy cost, and a build time of 15 seconds. But other than that, it is functionally the same. Now, obviously, when you click on these units, or you bring up the in-game information bar on them, you're not going to see stats. So, or at least one stat that matters: damage. So first things first, the standard AK laser, regardless of what it's mounted on, which is known as core laser, inflicts 30 points of damage. This is compared to the EMG's 8, but it has a slower rate of fire, and I believe slightly better range. I would actually have to go through and double check that. But as far as I can tell, it does seem to have slightly better range. So, slightly more slower rate of fire, bit more damaging, better range. Now, again, they are the AK and the... Here, I will actually build one to show you. Oops. Yeah, I better get some air defenses up while I'm talking about this. Sorry. Anyways. So yeah. Again, functionally, aside from taking slightly less time to build, the AK and underwater AK... Yeah, I keep calling it underwater AK for some reason. The Amphibious AK and standard AK are functionally the same, at least in terms of mobility and overall firepower. However, the Amphibious AK has 305 points of armor versus the AK's 265. Now, why would this matter? Well, depending on what you're fighting, it's not going to. You basically have 40 more points of armor than the standard AK. And that means you can last slightly longer for an amphibious raid. Now, of course, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to do you a damn bit of good, because units of total annihilation hit hard. To give an example, the standard rocket infantry of the core and the arm, the Storm and Rocco respectively, inflict 105 points of damage with each rocket blast. That means you basically will survive the initial hit, which is 210 points of damage, or 105, then 210 points of damage for the second rocket, and then 315 This means that the Amphibious AK and the standard AK can take roughly the same amount of hits from a rocket K-bot. However, that extra 40 points of armor also means you'd be able to survive a light laser tire blast. And that is actually very interesting. At least in my opinion. So, I could potentially see this being a good, like here, in a multiplayer game, I could potentially see this as a good early rating unit / something to tilt enemy players with. It hits reasonably hard. Again, 30 points of damage is nothing to scoff at, particularly since a concentrated barrage of laser fire is going to ruin someone's day. But at the same time, if you're looking for a relatively fast, or something that can be quickly built relatively cheaply, well, I mean, there's worse units you could go with. There are. So, how would I use this in a multiplayer scenario? Well, in a multiplayer scenario, I could see this being used in much the same fashion as what I'm doing right now. Fast early rating unit that can be used to tilt a player. And the fact it can take a few hits, for example, the Jethro's anti-air missile is only going to do 45 points of damage, which means you're going to be able to tank more than a few hits from this thing. But again, there are honestly better options out there if you're going to build a unit like this. Though by the time it gets to the point where you can build amphibious units, honestly, you'd be better off building ships. That's just my thoughts on the matter. Anyways, so how would I rate this unit? I'm just going to give it... Again, this is a nice little interesting unit. I think, again, you could use it for some early rating, use it to tilt players, and even use it later game to take hits from more advanced units, but in a long scheme of things, you'd probably be better off just building standard AKs. Not quite as tanky, but again, there's also the unit animation. The fact the backpack module doesn't actually turn with the K-bot. In this case, I think I'm going to give this unit, we'll say a 3 out of 5. Again, it's an interesting concept. And for what it is, again, it's an underwater AK. For what it is, it's very interesting, but it's not really a unit I would actually consider using long term. I mean, it might be good for surprising the hell out of somebody early game. Or, you know, just beating on a commander when he doesn't have a D gun, or when you've basically stripped your opponent of all their energy reserves after completely and utterly wrecking their economy. But, like I said, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that game-changing of a unit. Anyways, I'm Farzy. This has been the very first episode of Unit Review, and I will see you later. Peace.